Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
We are recording. It's the Three Stooges with Lee Marsalko today. Lee's a firefighter in Johnstown, PA. He decided to hop on with us. We had the VA that works with us actually find him, reached out to see if he wanted to hop on the podcast with us, which is great that he actually approved because we had two other people today back out. So thanks, Lee, for showing up. The cops apparently don't want to show up today.
I'll keep my comments to myself. I'm happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. So look, let's kind of like give the broad overview. So firefighter, real estate agent, what else? Like what else you got going on?
A couple investment units, duplex, the property that I'm flipping, and then the house I actually just moved into. It's my primary residence, but I still look at it as an investment. So the work I want to do to it probably line me up towards the end of my career in the fire department. So when I move on from that chapter, Airbnb, rental, whatever it may be, depending on what's the best value at the time, to sell. But I would prefer to keep it as an asset and rent it out.
So you're born and raised in PA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, small town.
We were talking about this before we started recording. Mike actually grew up close to where Lee. How far apart were y'all grew up at?
30 minutes.
Yeah. I'm not out of the Johnstown proper, so to speak. Cambria County native, so closer to Altoona, but still you're talking 45 minutes to an hour tops. The area where Mike's from, popular ski resort there, so down that way quite a bit. Our brokerage has an office down there too, so it is pretty small town, even though there's some miles in between,
So Lee, but for those of you not familiar with the metropolises we're referencing it, can you kind of give just like the 1 or 2 minute overview, like where you're at, what you're doing, where you live, fire department, how you got into real estate?
Absolutely. Well, the area that I grew up in, like I said, small town, Cambria County, Rust Belt, blue collar work, steel mills, whether it was Johnstown back in the day, railroad, coal mines, and getting out of in high school, my friends were really involved in the volunteer fire service, so that intrigued me. I got into it. Apparently, was the only one who stayed with it. Started applying for fire department jobs. You guys know how that process can go. Probably in about a year and a half, I landed a job with the city of Johnstown Fire Department, and that's where I've been since 2009. So I'm a little over 14 years in. 20 and out, if you so choose to retire at your retirement mark. And time goes fast, as you guys know, in this career. So as the clock ticks toward the end of that profession, I'm like, well, I'd like to have something else already lined up. Acquired a rental a couple years ago. Always been interested in real estate and the markets and economics, and just pursue my real estate license. Got my real estate license, and now I do that pretty much full time with the fire department because our schedules permit that. Can make for some long days, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. A couple years retired from the fire department, pursue real estate full time, and whatever other investments to go after. It's all everything's subject to change, within the next couple years.
So what prompted you to buy the first rental property? What was the if you thought about doing it for a long time and you wanted to do it, like what made you pull the trigger on actually buying it?
Well, if I have to rewind, give a little bit of history, my life. So the partner I was with in my past, I knew that there was something bigger than all of this, than just our ordinary jobs, going to work, this and that. Always had big dreams, whether, just to scale up, move other places, whatever it was. Didn't know, but knew that there was a bigger picture to all this. So as things kind of came toward the end of that relationship, moved into a duplex, and the other resident in the duplex was the owner. And I said, if you go to sell this place, let me know. I'd entertain buying it from you. He was actually a friend of mine, ended up selling it to me, fixed it up, rented out the one unit. It was like, okay, I could see this starting to snowball. I've since moved out of that place, working on the other place. I have a tenant just about to move in. And that's kind of how I got into, the real estate investing end of things. And as a real estate agent, of course, you help people buy and sell homes. You're helping people, and that's great. But, what you do with the money that you earn, whether you choose to go on vacation, maybe live a simple life, a lot of us like to try to just build that asset column. So that's kind of where I'm at. And just trying to continue to scale up, do something, make a big move at least once a year. So basically between that last one, getting a new tenant in that unit, and the flip I have going on with another business partner of mine in the works, that's 2023. 2024, we'll have to play it by ear, but I have a couple ideas in a minute. How about you guys?
So we're freaking all busy and all over the place. Mike's got storage units. Tyler's doing investments across the country and mortgages. I'm trying to buy lighthouses and castles. Dude, we're all over the freaking map. As you become friends with us, you'll see how we are the Three Stooges.
Love it.
So Lee, you talked about kind of taking that first step. You were already on the job, if I'm following this timeline, correct? So how did that conversation go? Because that's something we usually touch on. Like, hey, I'm going to get into real estate, and then everybody at the kitchen table's got a comment about how their uncle was a landlord, and everything was a nightmare, and blah blah blah. How did that look with the guys you worked with? And then depending on how that conversation went, how did you deal with that? Saying like, you know what, I'm still going to move forward.
Well, I have a pretty strong mindset, and I did prior to taking all of this on. I take opinions with a grain of salt, and I'm open to them, but I value more opinions from individuals who are at where I want to be, that are at a higher level, that can stem from genuine experience, not just word of mouth. So, in my mind, it's like, okay, I understand a lot of people get bad tenants, but what if you make it a nice place to have a good tenant, maybe charge more? Might take a little bit more money, might take a little bit more effort, but you can get most likely a better tenant out of it. And it seemed to work out that way. So I think you get out of it what you put in. If you're just going to buy a property and just have somebody move in and forget about it, then you can probably expect to have a bad tenant.
Sure.
Can we talk about bad tenants real quick? So, bad tenants. So Tyler and Mike know this. So I've got a multi-unit property. It's got 3 houses on one lot, right? So I've been trying to evict somebody for the last 7 months, and I finally got them out this past week. My property manager sent me this message saying, I'm going to read it verbatim. She only found 3 dead rats in his bed that he was sleeping in, along with the maggots in his flipping bed. All I can say is, oh my God, Lord, help me understand these people. So here's the good thing.
Sounds like
he only owes me like $8,000, right? Not only, I'm saying that with the
that's like 1 month where Tyler lives.
Yeah, no shit. But now I'm getting rid of somebody who's an absolute headache. He is 80% of my problems. And you're right. Once I get rid of this guy, I can replace him with somebody better who is hopefully less headaches and more squared away and will actually pay me. But now is going through the process of, since he didn't pay me, he owes me so much money for the water. The repairs alone are going to be a couple $1,000. You can imagine if you're sleeping on dead rats, what the house looks like. So one of the longest process to evict somebody here in Maryland is in the county that this is in. So he's out, he's gone. It took forever. But now I can clean it up, hopefully, and get somebody else in there. So Section 8's an option. I see Mike mention that. Or I can get a residential or a retail renter. And when I look for renters, I usually try to look for somebody who has a stable business, or they have a government job or a career, not just like a 9-to-5 somewhere where they can come and go. When you guys look at your renters, when you're trying to find a pool of people to pull from, what are you looking for? obviously credit score and finances are a big part of it too. So Lee, I'm gonna go with you first.
Well, at least in the beginning stages, because I'm not too far into it like you guys are yet. But and also, I was living there too at the time that I got my first tenant, so I would want to make sure I had a good tenant. I never had to evict anybody. I did, do a background check, this, that, and the other thing. Everything seemed to check out. I do really believe that. Everybody kind of gets a clean slate with me, and I understand that. There may be things that aren't foreseen until down the road. So in my first unit, had a great lady move in. I knew she had a stable job. Everything was fine there. And I had no reason, to think that she would be a bad tenant. She takes great care of the place. I have no complaints at all. I mean, just like anything in business, there's going to be a risk. So like you might get a bad egg every once in a while. You're going to have to take it and deal with it and then figure it out. I think if you're a good landlord and you have good intentions and you do keep up with the place, you work together, things can go along smooth. I did have another tenant in there prior to her, and they just asked if they could end their lease. And I thought that'll probably be the best thing. I'll let them go. I won't charge them for it. And they went peacefully, and it wasn't, a turbulent ride after that. So the tenant moving into my other unit now, I know he doesn't have the best credit, but I know he has a pretty good job. But he's also a very hard worker, going to do all the maintenance, take care of the place. So I'm okay with charging him a little less in order for him to take care of my property. Because he's in like landscaping, he's a handy guy. So if it, I expect it to work out, hope it works out. If it doesn't, you go back to the drawing board and you get it figured out.
Mike, you do something I really like, where you do like a annual inspection, safety and health inspection, right? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so I call it my like safe and secure inspection. So because everybody, for the most part, I think starts out as a good resident, and I'm sure we all pretty much have the same underwriting guidelines: 2.5 to 3 times the monthly income for the rent, which is every time I've deviated even a little bit on that, comes back to haunt you. So I like 3 times the monthly rent, no evictions. And like to your point about the career, it'd be very difficult for some of the price points to sit there and pick somebody that's got a career per se, but I am looking for stable employment. Like if I have somebody that works at a store and they've been there for a year or two and she's the assistant manager or something, like I get it. I'm probably not going to get like a engineer from Lockheed Martin to rent some of these places, but I'm looking for somebody that's got stable employment. And then the no felonies, no evictions, that kind of stuff. Like if you have a DUI, you have a couple things in collections because of some medical billing, whatever. I'm looking for any sort of landlord judgments. That's a big red flag, obviously. As far as the inspections go, because you can do all of that. And, I always equate it to look at the hiring process in the fire department. I can't speak to the police department. Those poor bastards are probably about willing to take anybody that can fog a mirror, because who wants to be a cop? I get it. But the fire department, like look at our hiring process, like written test, physical agility test, oral interview, background, psychological, recruit school, probation, and we still get dipshits. Like it's just the way it is. Like there's people involved, right? So my thing is like, okay, how do we come back and like make sure that everybody's still playing by what we agreed to? And I do it as the safe and secure inspection. So I try and do one about, and just to be clear, I don't really do them at this point. The property manager does, but they follow the template I gave them. And if you think about it, just kind of like a 360, you arrive on the incident scene. Like I'm looking at the Alpha side, Bravo side, kind of checking on the outside of the house. Like, hey, are the gutters? Like we just did one the other day. The actual gutter is just filled with leaves. So it was raining here for the last couple, like 4 days. So all this water is just deluging down on, basically starting to run out the baseboard. Cool. Notate it. Get to the inside of the house, check all the common stuff, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, look and run every sink, toilet, faucet, make sure there's no water dripping underneath. And also like you build this whole process as like, hey, we're checking out your safety. And if anybody ever gives us flack, I kind of use a little bit of wiggle room and tell them our insurance company makes us do it. It's kind of true. But
homeowners don't have to do it.
I'm my own insurance company. That's all they need to know. I'm ensuring that the property is okay. So check all the toilets, check to make sure it's not loose. Like, cause one of the things that's like super simple, just tighten down the toilet because it gets loose. The next thing you know, you got the floor rotting, all this dumb stuff that if it's caught early is relatively minor. But it also allows you just to get a real good idea. Like you're going to get a good idea in the first 2 months if somebody's going to be the type of person that's okay living in the same bed as rats, right? If you go in, there's a big difference. And just with our line of work, you go into the house that you can tell the kids were playing versus the house that is dirty and people are sleeping with rats. There's a big difference. Like you can tell. So if I go in there, and I always try and make it so that like the first 60 days, we have to go in there for something. Hey, we have to change the filter. We got to do this. That gets you in there. And then I set up the interval every 6 months. We do a safe and secure inspection. And you'll know real quick if something's starting to get a little sideways. With that being said, I think Aaron is the one that uses the term hoodwinked. I had a property manager doing these safe and secure inspections. Well, the whole time she's basically hoodwinking these pictures and BSing her reports. Come to find out, she was working for the management company. She rolled out. It was a big mess. So we had to kind of play a little catch up. And I had a situation develop kind of like what Aaron just described, but not nearly as severe by the sounds of it. So just one of those things, like it's cool. Finding the deal is one part of it. Rehabbing the deal, like Lee said, is part of it. Placing a good tenant is a part of it, but managing that tenant through the time of that investment is, I think, as important, if not more than all of those other things. So
Tyler, anything you want to add?
Long-winded way for me to explain it.
No, I mean, it's all pretty much the same questions. I would just say when I was listening to you guys, and I'm sure you guys did the same thing. The big thing for me is listen to your gut. When you're looking at the tenants, I do have property management since everything's remote, but they obviously still send me the applicants, and I'm dealing with something right now where I knew I should not have accepted the tenants. And sure enough, guess what? I was right. So I would just say trust your gut. And we're spending a ton of money on this asset. We're fixing it up. We have financing on it, all these things. I mean, we can spend just a little bit extra time. It's kind of like hiring, right? Be slow to hire, quick to fire. It's like the same thing with tenants. Like Lee mentioned, maybe spend a little bit more money on the finishes, things like that, to be top of market, even if it takes you a little bit longer to rent it. Because let's say it's 1 month versus, like I think Mike mentioned, not tightening down a toilet when it's loose, and then all of a sudden you go from needing to tighten down a toilet to you have flooded subfloor and you got to rip a bunch of stuff out, put new flooring in, mold, all that kind of stuff. I mean, so I would just say that the only thing I would add is trust your gut. I feel like we all have good people skills in our jobs. We're constantly talking to people. We know how to read them. That would be something that we do on a daily basis that maybe the general public does not. So use it to your advantage.
Now, Lee, when you talked about like you're getting your real estate license, what was the process to get certified to be a real estate agent in Pennsylvania?
Well, I took my course through the CE shop. And for anybody listening, it doesn't hurt to talk to a broker ahead of time. They might pay for it. I paid for mine, then went to the broker. But if they want you, they'd probably entertain paying for your course. So a couple $100, I want to say around 400, give or take. It could be less depending on what you want. So I got some additional like practice tests and stuff like that. Took me a couple months, obviously working full time, working with my rental property and stuff like that. But I know people, actually the owner of my brokerage, he did it in a week. He banged out his classwork in a week. So that's impressive. So 6 months, that's still okay. There is a time frame that you do have to complete it by, but it's probably close to a year or whatever. So did that, just kind of hopped right into it. A lot of the stuff you learn, it's for the test, sort of like what we deal with in the fire service. There's a lot of study material, but the best way to learn this industry is, of course, getting out there, getting thrown to the wolves and learning as you go, because every situation's different, just like every fire is different, or every call that we go on. So you kind of just get more experience, get better with it, and don't let off the gas. But your mentality, I believe, your attitude, all of these things are driving factors in your success in real estate. You can't just go and say, I don't make enough money. If I sell a house, or if I get into selling houses, I could be a millionaire. You can't think that way, because then you'll come across as a different way to the clients that you work with. You have to be in it for the right reasons. We all like helping people, right? So we're there for them on the worst day of their life and on the best day of their life, one of their biggest financial decisions. So I think if you truly have your heart and soul into it, and you, again, don't let off the gas, then it can be a very rewarding career. So just seeing that come about kind of just snowballs, and I hit the ground running my first year and didn't look back. It's not a linear slope up. You're going to have peaks and valleys, and sometimes when it rains, it pours, in a good way and a not so good way. But if you're able to swing it, and with your job, if you can put in more than the bare minimum, which is what a lot of agents do, then you'll probably be doing okay.
Yeah.
Why'd you choose the brokerage that you're using? I think it's Realty One.
Yeah, I'm with Realty One. Yeah. I interviewed at a bunch of different brokerages, and I was like, well, I need to make a decision, and I feel like it's just going to come to me, kind of like whenever people are shopping for homes, like you just know that's the one. And I interviewed at a brokerage, and he asked what my goals were for my first year in real estate. I'm like, I don't know, how about $1 million in sales volume? I don't know if that's good or not good, but I just kind of threw a number out there. I figured sell so many homes. And he kind of chuckled and was like, I don't think your first year. He goes, maybe in your second year. And that has always stuck with me, because I'm thinking, well, there's people that sell $1 million worth in their first year around here. Why couldn't I do it?
Or
so,
one deal,
Well, depending on where you are,
Sure.
one deal. So obviously I'm not in the same market that Tyler is in, or that you guys are, but I said, okay. And when I got to Tyler Thompson here at Realty One, I'm out of the Landmark office. I told him that goal, and he's like, absolutely. He's like, if you put in the work, you keep going. He's like, yeah, of course it's possible. And I'm like, that's what I need to hear. So where do I sign? That's how I ended up at Realty One.
Your team makes such a big difference around you. Like people who are like, yeah, you can do it. Like, let me help you. Versus the guys like, no, I don't think you're gonna get it. Like a lot of the officers I've seen that get promoted are like, oh yeah, you're not gonna get your first fire. It's like same concept. It's kind of like, well, way to put out his fucking like motivation and drive, bro. Like it's supposed to like help flame the not to make a pun out of it, but flame the fire to get him motivated and keep him moving forward, not like diminishes his expectations and whatnot. So it sounds like you got somebody who's a good broker. And when you started shopping for your brokerage, I don't know if you want to talk about numbers. What do costs look like to get certified? Like what's the course cost? What's the marketing stuff costing? What do your startup fees look like to become a realtor in PA?
Yeah, so I did kind of deviate from that a little bit, but so the course, you're talking a couple $100. There's air and emissions insurance. There's definitely fees associated with. So like, monthly, I pay it's like $150 fee to be with, the company I'm at, but it's 100% commission based. So that's the nice thing about it. That's the trade-off. So that's why quantity, is a thing within our company, just because that's what's making the company money. But just from all the agents I work with, getting back to what you just said, a chain's only as strong as its weakest link, and we all cheer for each other. We all help each other out. We have such a good team and people surrounding us, and it starts at the top. with Tyler, who owns the company. I mean, if people can't help you out with the showing, he'll be like, let me know. I mean, the dude's put on over 400 miles a day in showings. He'll sell a $6,000 house or $600,000 house or onward and upward. He just doesn't stop. And he's actually a couple years younger than me. I'm 36. He's in his early 30s and truly leads by example. And that's contagious, throughout the agents in our office. And that's what makes it such a good place to work. When you're in a better mood and when you feel motivated, like you have support, it motivates you, and you have a pretty strong team.
Yeah, that could be said about a lot of things. Think about working at a firehouse with a bunch of dudes that don't want to get off the couch. It's a lot easier to kind of assimilate to that environment versus when you're working with a bunch of killers here. It's like, dude, let's go do this, let's go do that. Hey, it's like same thing. If you got a guy that's out there, hey, let's go show houses, let's go here, let's do this, let's get it done, versus the agent that still thinks email is a fad, you're going to have totally different results. And it sounds like his view and vision is large enough that it kind of encompassed your view, and like that, the whole $1 million in a year, like the other guy didn't have that same vision. So like he automatically had that limiting belief. So hey man, this ain't the right environment. So pretty cool how one little kind of decision, I say little, but it can be such a huge decision. So how do you balance your work at the firehouse versus what you're doing? What type of schedule do you guys work?
Of course. And can I elaborate just real quick on the rest of what I was saying with Aaron in terms of like costs associated with? So sure, you can pay for different lead sources. You can get involved in some other lead sources that you pay at the end. But again, going back to Tyler, if you're like, hey, can you help me out with maybe cold calls or whatever, circle prospecting, whatever. Sure, let's schedule a meeting, sit down, and we'll go through it together. So, he's really in there in the trenches to help out if you ask. If you're willing to learn, he's willing to teach. So there are ways to go about it that aren't costly, just require putting in, the time and the effort. So I'd say, I don't know, you could probably expect to spend around maybe $1,000 or two. In your first year in real estate, you're going to spend money on gas. If you're not selling a home, then sure, it's the delayed gratitude you have to understand. You can't expect things to happen up front. You're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to spend money and just know in your head that it's going to work out based on your performance leading up to that. So to actually put a dollar amount on it, it's kind of hard to do, but you just have to have the mindset that, you're going to succeed. You're going to, come out on top, and then the good things will start to come to you if you're in it for the right reasons. So
one thing I like that you said was, if you're willing to learn, he's willing to teach. And before we hopped on this podcast, we were talking amongst ourselves about a mutual friend of ours who, he called me yesterday, and we were talking about how people like to waste your time because they want to know what you know. They want to have the information that you have. They don't think they're wasting your time because if they never take action, it's a waste of your time. So I'm trying to say this. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without saying his name. So people come to somebody who has the experience, like one of us, and ask you lots of questions. And it's not because they're being rude and I guess rude about it. They want to learn what you learn, but that doesn't necessarily negate, or it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take action with the information that you provided. So it sounds like to me that you've taken action with the information that your boss Tyler has provided you. But a lot of people, they just take that information and they sit on it and they never take action. And knowledge itself is not power, but knowledge in use is power. And I think a lot of people get that wrong when they quote it, because we see a lot of people who get the information and then they never pull the trigger. Like, this is how you hold a gun. This is how you load a gun. This is how you clean a gun. And then they never pull the trigger of that gun. So they never know what the action actually feels like. And that's a big thing for this. You have to be an action taker. You just can't be somebody who has analysis by paralysis, because you're never going to actually make any headway with, moving forward, whatever your project is, whether it be real estate, construction, owning your own business, whatever it might be. So I like hearing that you have a motivated brokerage, because I see a lot of brokerages out there who are not motivated, and they just kind of they like collecting the fee from the people working underneath of them, it seems like. Can you break down how a real estate brokerage works. Like how everybody thinks you get 6% when you sell a house, and that's not actually a true number. It's actually less than that, right?
Well, it can vary. So we're in the Pittsburgh market. And I do want to touch back on what Mike had asked prior to this question.
No, sorry, all about that. My bad, Mike.
That's okay.
We're
but
goldfish.
We're in the Pittsburgh market, so that's 7%. With the shifting of the real estate market right now, interest rates on the rise, some things are negotiable. So you might work with somebody, if you negotiate your commission with them, it might not be a straight 6% or 7% or 5% or whatever. Maybe you've already worked with them before, or maybe they've given you a referral and you're kind of helping each other out. So you don't want to lose business. I get it, by, charging the highest commission, but also you don't want to devalue yourself either. So, the same amount of work goes into a real estate transaction, whether it's a $6,000 house or a $600,000 house. So yeah, you absolutely have to know your worth. I'm not really sure of how else you want me to answer that, Aaron, in terms of like when it comes to working with other people. I do think there's wiggle room in any given situation, but again, you have to know your worth.
I think Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're referring to, you get this gross 6%, right? Then you have a desk fee, you have a commission split, you have marketing fees, you have insurance. So yeah, people see this big number and they don't realize that's prior to all that getting taken out. And with your company, for example, I know some brokerages will do a volume-based deal where, okay, if you sell up to $1 million, here's your split. After $1 million, it's 100% split with a $500 transaction fee, stuff like that. Is that kind of where you were headed, Aaron? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And also, so the reason I thought about that is because I just had a conversation about staging one of the properties that I was looking at selling, and the staging fee went up to like, something ridiculous, like $6,500 for like a standard 3-2. And I'm like, a lot of people don't see that $6,500 coming out of that 6%. Like that's coming out of the real estate agent's pocket. So same thing, like Ty was saying, like a broker gets a percentage of it. And then you have the marketing fees, and then you have everything else that goes into it. So like when people think you're getting a straight 6% or 3% split, however you want to break it down, a lot of people don't realize that there's other expenditures that you have operating a quote unquote business as a real estate agent. And I just think that it's something that needs to be highlighted because a lot of people just don't realize that. Now, do I think that all realtors are worth their weight in gold? Absolutely not. Like I just had to tell a realtor that he sent me the wrong paperwork and he's missing paperwork because I just happen to know the paperwork I need. Now, is he the standard? I mean, I don't know. Do we have real estate agents who will go above and beyond? 100%. So you need to find somebody who works with you, like Lee has with his brokerage. Somebody who's going to motivate you to sell. Somebody who's going to help you out. Somebody's going to, explain it to you. One of my pet peeves, and I can't stand this, is when a realtor asks you, what's the lowest you're willing to sell the house for? I don't need you to negotiate me down. I need you to negotiate me up. And we need to start at a price point where it's realistic for that market. And so I was interviewing a couple of real estate agents not too long ago. And one was like, yeah, we'll just list it at like 425 and see what the market says. I was like, that's not really helping me out. Like, let's do some market research and see what are other 3-2s in the 1,700 square foot range going for in this location, in this part of town with these amenities. Like, this is what I need you to break down. And he's like, oh, well, we can look into that, but we should start at like 425. So I did my own research. I'm like, we're about 35,000 too high. Let's start looking at comps. And I was like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He just wants to have another check written out to him. So that's kind of where I was going with the breakdown on the fees and whatnot. And some realtors are worth their weight in gold. Some are hindering the process. Mike, I know you got something.
Like I tell Bill, I tell him most realtors suck, especially whenever you're looking for a realtor that understands the investment side of the process. I mean, it sounds like Lee is well on that track. I mean, that in itself is a point of differentiation that most people do not understand, because the vast majority of realtors I know don't invest, right? So if you're a realtor and an investor, you can speak in an educated manner to a different type of client. And that's something that is just not what most realtors can do. But that's a whole nother conversation. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's funny you say that because, like, I foam at the mouth whenever somebody says that they're getting into real estate investing because I know that excitement. I was just working with somebody the other day. He's new to it. And he's in his later years in college, and he's like, "Yep, I already started my LLC." I'm like, "Okay, so this dude's more serious and
at least taking action, right?"
Exactly, starting to take action. So, when you talk about that side of it, the business structure, you can kind of go back and forth a little bit more because it is a different way to go about it than your typical buying a primary residence for yourself. You come up with different strategies, see what works best for you and your business, or what your short-term goals are, what your long-term goals are, and it's just fun talking about these things with people. That's what excites me. When I see people wanting to, expand their investments.
So most of the folks that listen to this, I would presume, are not agents. But if you're somebody that's looking to get into investing, would you recommend getting your license, or say just double down on the investing side of things?
So, and as your real estate license before getting into
Correct.
investing in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it depends on what interests you, and what your motivating factors are. Yeah, if you're, hey, all blue collar, I want to be, in the trenches doing whether it's landscaping, tree trimming service, chimney cleaning, your last podcast, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's still an investment. That doesn't mean you have to become a real estate agent. It's all on what you want to do and what makes you happy, what you think you could see yourself doing. A lot of people, some of our friends, they get to see the stressful side of the real estate job, and they're like, "Oh, I could never do that. I would never want to do that." But folks like us, I think they like to be challenged. We like to push ourselves, and sometimes we can push ourselves a little much. It's about finding that balance because it is.
The question I always pose to people is like, "Hey, I like to swing the hammer," and I'll pick on Aaron a little bit. Like, Aaron's a little bit bionic because he likes to swing the hammer, but he also is smart enough to like do things with his head. So, meaning that I always look at it as, what if you couldn't go to work tomorrow? Like, what if you couldn't be a firefighter? What if you couldn't be a police officer and you had to basically provide in a different way? If you only know how to swing the hammer, and say you just had shoulder surgery or something, you could be in a rough spot, right? If you're able to learn how to do all those things, but then also learn how to make money with your head, so to speak, you're a lot more versatile. So you're never above that work, but you choose to maybe not do that work yourself. I think it's just an important realization. So it's just one of them things like, hey, if you're a real estate agent, if God, help us, like if something were to happen to where you couldn't be on the floor for a year, you could still have a skill set to bring to the table besides, I respond to bullshit emergencies and I do it every 3 days. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to bring something else to the table here, man. So it's just one of the things I encourage people to think about, because usually it's like, I'm young, I got hired, I just want to go to fires and save babies and never ride the ambulance, and I'm going to do that for 25 years and everything's going to be gravy. And then all of a sudden you realize like, whoa, I'm 35, I'm 36. Wow, that hurts. Where'd that come from? And then you start to realize like, hey man, I'm one call away or one step off of a sidewalk wrong, and now I have a career-ending injury. What am I doing to prepare accordingly? Because they always say like the best time to dig that well is before you're thirsty. Same thing, man. Like, don't wait until you're laid up in the hospital going, what am I going to do? So, sorry, that's a little side tangent.
No, you're right. Or, don't wait till the end of your career and go find some, find some low-end job and working for half pay is what we call it. You're giving a fire department salary to go make less and collect the pension when you make the same if you just stayed on the job. So whether it's that and hey, nothing's guaranteed. So like, you get laid off, you lose your job, maybe they cut staffing, whatever the situation may be. there's a saying, you're only one paycheck away from poverty. That paycheck gets cut off. What's the backup plan? That's not the time to be figuring it out. So it doesn't hurt to brainstorm ideas. We all have things inside of us that I think can bring value to other people. Doesn't have to be real estate, could be anything. But if you can bring value, if you know something that other people don't, you can capitalize on it. Just start. That's the biggest thing, is you just got to start. The business stuff will come because there's no script. There's no black and white of rules to follow. Like, you have to learn as you go, and you're going to make mistakes, and you have to expect that. And part of growing, they say if you want to double your success, double your failure rate. And I love that, because that's how you learn. And you can't look at failures as true failures.
That's a good title.
They get something out of it, a lesson, if anything, that you can apply to the next chapter.
Yeah.
So do you ever run into a lot of looky-loos? And I say that because I think the average is between 10 and 30 that somebody takes a look at. Somebody sees a house, 10 to 30 houses, give or take. Like, do you ever have people who just come waste your time? Like, hey, I'm just curious to see what it looks like inside.
Oh, yeah. It happens. Or they're working with another agent or whatever the case may be.
What are some other obstacles that you faced as a real estate agent?
Scammer. Did you ever guys ever deal with a scammer? Somebody who wasn't serious? That was, Tyler knows. It's not cool, not fun. You waste a lot of time and energy, but in my head, I'm like, I wish that person well. Can't let this take me down. Got to get back on the horse and keep going. And, karma will take care of that. If they're in a position where they feel the need to do that to other people, whether it's real estate agents or anything else out there, I look at it from an empathetic standpoint. They have bigger things on their plate to worry about, internally. And that's what keeps me going, instead of getting frustrated, mad, and angry. And it's just, it's disheartening, but you just got to move on from it. It's going to happen.
You're in a business where you have to move a lot of dirt to find the gold, right? And if you're not comfortable with that, it's going to be a tough career. But when you do it and you'll start to pick up on those people, you catch it earlier, and then you can kind of, okay, I need to understand that this person's not legit, and then move on. Where at first you're willing to believe everybody's being truthful and upfront, and oh yeah, this is a great deal. And after a while, it's like, tying it back to the job. You think somebody's legitimately having a heart attack maybe your first year, and then on the second year, like, this is EH, this is an anxiety attack, this person's doing whatever. But it takes you a while to learn it, and I think it makes you better at your job because of it. Yeah, the scammers are definitely out there.
I was talking to Tommy about a week ago, and he's doing like an owner finance deal in Philly, and the lady wrote a check that bounced. She moved in, and the check bounced after she had moved in, and then she hired a painter to paint the house. He painted it, and the check that she paid the painter and also bounced. I was like what at what point do you think you could get away with this? Like, you just had the house
painted. He was a cop, and that should be a clue.
Yeah.
She's not going to be a good one.
He went and had an in-person conversation with her, and I was like, how'd that go? And he was like, well, any check over, I think it's $1,000 is a something one misdemeanor. He goes, you wrote 3 bad checks for over $1,000, so it's 3 misdemeanors. He's like, I don't want to get the police involved, so I think you need to leave like now. So you got to move out quickly, but you got a free paint job out of it.
It's bright pink, but yeah, that's why we do the first payment has to be certified funds.
Like what, ACH, banknote, wire?
Yeah, or like a cashier's check or something.
Yeah, personal checks are too sketchy with stuff like that. There's people like we were just mentioning, they know how that process works, right? They know they can write the check. It'll buy them some time. Nobody's going to find out until they're moved in. And then most of the time at that point, it's like, oh, I'm already in the house. I'm screwed, especially like California, right? Once you get in there, good luck getting them out. So I think I would never take a personal check anymore. But
that's where some rednecks that know some rednecks is handy.
Yeah, there you go. So Lee, I have a question.
Time and effort into their scams or whatever they're doing. If they put that much time and effort into something productive, I mean, just think of the places they could go. That's what I think.
Like, yeah, it's funny. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Relentless by Tim Grover, and he actually goes into that, where he said you take some of the most like well-known criminals And had they taken that same drive and applied it to a legitimate business source, he's like, they'd be just as successful. And it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, they spend so much time learning how to game the system. So why not learn how the system works and then work within the rules? And you'd probably find the same level of success.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the squatters' rights around the country, just out of curiosity to see like how long it takes to basically take ownership of the property. Looks like California is 5 years. Most of them are like 15 to 20. Florida's 7. It's interesting to see like if you just go on somebody's property and live there for 5 or.
I was going to say the whole fact that there's even a thing called a squatter right is kind of mind-boggling to me, but the landlord doesn't have landlord rights to come whoop their.
Well, I did hear something I thought was funny the other day, where somebody gave the advice of, "We'll just go move in with them," and then put a no trespassing sign up and call the cops and say, "No, I live here. They're trespassing. I don't know what they're doing here," and have them arrested for trespassing. I was like, "That's one way to skin a cat. I like that. Try that one." So maybe I should have gone and lived with the guy who was sleeping on rats.
Hopefully that's something I never have to deal with. Oh my gosh.
Do you do Section 8?
No, I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I just haven't crossed that bridge.
Yeah. No, I have done Section 8. I've had regular free market, fair market, whatever you want to call it. And I often think Section 8 gets a bad rap, man, because a lot of folks just think of the typical professional tenant, and most of the tenants I've dealt with on Section 8 are pretty decent. Now, that is not to say that there are not professional tenants in that program, but I think people automatically associate some of those stories we just talked about with Section 8 type tenants. Oh, thank you.
That's like the guy I was talking about, the eviction. He owns his own business, and he is like, on paper, he's got like a 4.3 star review. And when I Googled him, apparently he was running his business out of my house because the address popped up for his business. And I was like, oh, apparently I have a commercial property now. That's great to know. But yeah, like on paper, they can look great, but once you start getting into it, like, okay, there's probably mental health issues here, or they're just a scumbag. It just depends on what it is. I think it's interesting to see how all of us have evolved in real estate over. I mean, this is my first eviction in 20 years of being an investor. And so like
when you think about it, that's pretty good odds. Like
it is. And like
we've established, there's going to be issues. It's not all puppy dogs and rainbows, man. Like, sorry, once Sam just decided to get out like these laser fluid ones. If you hear that. But it's one of the things, like, you do anything for long enough, like, you're going to have issues. It's just, you got to stick with it. And that's why when I got into real estate, I committed to myself that I would stick with it for no less than 5 years. Because if I only went on a short time horizon of 1 year, and you have one maintenance call, all of a sudden you're like, this is horrible, I'm done. Where like over 5 years, if you look at the basically net positive, it's super worth it.
The one thing I didn't think about, I was telling my buddy about the story, and he's a vet buddy of mine, and he was like, bro, like you're 5 minutes away from Andrews Air Force Base. Why don't you just market to vets or military? I was like, you know what? I don't know why I never thought about that, because that's a better demographic. If they don't pay, I can just go to their supervisor and they
get a housing allowance too. So
yeah,
like
their BAC. Now we're playing the flute, huh?
So Lee, you mentioned that you have 6 years left until you can retire. Is that correct?
Yeah, about 5.5.
5.5. Okay. Do you have a goal as far as like you started becoming an agent, you bought some rental properties? Do you have a goal to hit by the time you're there? And assuming you're going to continue full time once you retire, is there a certain like number of units you're trying to hit or anything like that? Or are you just still kind of trying to navigate what you want to do in that respect?
Yeah, I don't really have like a concrete number. I would at least like to acquire one property a year. This year I was at 2. So, it's everything's subject to change. If I sell more houses, then I can buy more properties, or pursue other business ventures. Like I said, I like to be diversified. I don't want to just put all my eggs in just real estate, but I do want to get that going, a solid foundation of income streams. So if I were to decide to fly the coop out of Pennsylvania, which I wouldn't mind doing some point down the road after retiring. Forced to a retiree-friendly state that's not going to eat up my pension.
Pennsylvania's not bad.
No, Pennsylvania's not bad, but growing up here all my life, I just, I'm ready for some palm trees maybe, some drier weather. I'm thinking, honestly, probably somewhere out west, like Arizona, Nevada, maybe even Utah. So, but yeah, just like I said, everything's subject to change. I mean, as a single guy right now, you get in a relationship with somebody who is planting their feet here, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to stay because you have your client base here, you've built a reputation here. So to uproot and move somewhere else, you're kind of starting over from scratch. So it's a give and take. But yeah, I don't really have a solid number of properties I'd like to acquire, but one a year for sure.
What's funny is so I've been looking at this because I at the same time left. I've got 5 years and 4 months left. We're a 25-year retirement plan. So I'm like, okay, where can my wife wants to live close enough to where if we need to get back to our family, then it's not a bad drive. So we're like in the hour and a half, 2 hours away mark. Where me and Mike live at, we can be in 4 or 5 states within 15 minutes to an hour. Like Mike's lives right by West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland. He can be in DC in probably an hour. He can be in Delaware in probably 2.5 hours, give or take. So we have options to kind of where we want to go to. But I was looking at the same thing. Like pension's a big thing for me. Like I don't want to get property tax is big, excise tax is big, sales tax, and pension tax. So like Delaware, I know they tax your pension. Pennsylvania, they do not. Maryland does tax your pension, but there was just a lawsuit where if you're a retired firefighter, you're supposed to get some kind of tax write-off. So there's a lot of things.
It's only like up to the first 25 grand or so. I actually want to get somebody on here to talk about that kind of stuff because I'm talking with a guy in our drop program right now about like, hey, would you mind sharing some things you've learned going through this whole process? But
but those are important factors. Like we don't have the drop program, but we should. Between the year in my department, I ran the numbers of the day between, I think it's 2027 and 2034, 50% of DC is going to be eligible to retire. So like we don't have a drop program in place to know if guys are going to stay or if they're going to leave. So it's just like if everybody wants, if 800 people want to roll out at once, then see ya. Good luck. You guys are going to be stuck on overtime for mandatories for years.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that you're looking forward as to what's next. I was just looking at your Facebook page. It looks like you do some traveling. I think you were hiking in Red Rock Canyon in some of the pictures. Do you do a lot of hiking and like outdoor stuff, like in your days off? Like, what do you do to decompress outside of work?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question. So, during COVID, when all that craziness was going down, before I decided I wanted my real estate license, I did that road trip that you're talking about. Took a month off. Just needed to get some clarity and, of course, enjoy the beauty of this country and get out, do some hiking. So I came back and I'm like, okay, I got to hit the ground running with this. So, it was definitely an eye-opening experience. I've learned a lot about myself and where I'd like to go in life from that experience. Repeat that last question, Aaron.
Like, what do you do? So one of the things we don't really talk about, and we haven't talked about, is like, what do we do to decompress? Because obviously we have a lot of balls up in the air. So what do we do, kind of like, to shake off the stress and the bad energy? Like I know Mike went on a nature walk, as his workmates affectionately call it. He went on this long hike for his decompression. Like, what do you do to kind of like just relax?
Well, there hasn't been a whole lot of relaxing since I got my real estate license, last year, I should say. But I get out every day for a walk with my dog. I try to do some meditating. I talk to people who I haven't talked to in a while. I'll send a text, at least one a day, to somebody who I haven't talked to in a very long time, just kind of letting them know how much, I appreciate them. And I'm grateful that they're in my life. So like gratitude, things like that, because as we know that there's a lot of negativity out in this world. But I think if you're looking for the good, then you'll find the good. If you're looking for the bad, you'll find the bad, and sometimes it finds you, and you have to have a way of managing that. So if it comes to people who are never in a good mood, always complaining this and that, I try to steer the conversation in a positive light, always end on a high note. Something my friend taught me, if somebody's just doing nothing but complaining, has nothing good to say, she just nonchalantly just like wipes her arms. It's like wiping off the bad energy. And I know it might sound cheesy, but you're just like, hey, this isn't going to bother me. I'm going to deflect it. And I'm like, okay. And I tried it and it works. So maybe leaving the room, things like that. But it's definitely important to take time for yourself, and working these 2 jobs full time on top of our investments and things like that. It can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. When other people start to notice it, then, you really are probably behind the 8 ball on taking care of your mental and physical health. So you have to be in a good place to be able to help other people, or else, you're not going to be of much use to them. So it's important to take care of those things, or else you'll get burnout, and that'll show in your performance. Then you won't know what to do. And we've probably all been there.
Sure.
Yeah, misery loves company. That's why we don't want to be in that company, because they're just going to take our energy and suck it. They're energy vampires, as they like to say. I've been trying to go for a 1 to 2 mile walk every day. I've got a newborn. So my goal is to walk at least 1 to 2 miles every day for multiple reasons, not just for my health, but to get him, a stronger immune system, get him outside, get him used to weather changes and whatnot. And that's been important for me for my daily de-stressor. Mike and Tyler, I actually kind of want to hear what both of you guys are doing right now. Ty, Mike.
For me, it's funny. I was laughing. I'm like, well, I used to be super active.
I know.
Before my knee injury. But so it was funny. So I'm glad you brought it up, because being out the job that long and stuff like that, and then the whole mental health aspect. I used to run a lot. I used to lift a lot. I used to do hiking, all that kind of stuff. And I really haven't for a long time. But now I just said, screw it. I can't run, but I can walk. So I've been walking at least a few miles a day, doing what I can as far as PT and stuff like that goes. But a lot of it is, getting out of my office. And then I live in the foothills, but I'm also 15 minutes to the beach. So as soon as I'm getting in that funky area, I just go for a change of scenery. And that's been helping a lot. But yeah, for me, the biggest thing has always been doing physical stuff, which is kind of sidelined for the moment. But I look forward to the day where I can go ruck and I have all my weight vests gathering dust in my garage. So once that happens again, I'll definitely be resuming that.
Mikey.
Yeah, to echo kind of what you guys said, I like to get outside. I live near the Appalachian Trail. I try and hit that every now and then, even if it's just a couple miles. But on the days I got to just pound the pavement, like you said, with the kids or whatnot, I have a little backpack I can put the youngest in, which is pretty cool. If not, I have a bag, I put some weight in it and just go knock out like 4 or 5 miles just to get outside. Sometimes I don't listen to any music, something like that. But doing something physical, I think, really helps. And if I can get into nature in some capacity, I think that is super cool. I like it.
I think it's one of the questions we should start asking people is like, what are you doing to like de-stress? Because it's not a conversation a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys like, oh yeah, I just go have a cigar and I drink my whiskey and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not really getting rid of stress. I mean, maybe it works. I don't know. That's not my.
Don't get me wrong. I like to occasionally have a cigar. I'm not into whiskey and all that jazz, but like, that's if I had to do that every time to de-stress, man, I'd be over here just like chain smoking sometimes. Like it wouldn't work out so well.
Lee, so what's next for you, man? As we wrap this thing up, what's next for you? Like coming up in the next year, I know you say you want to do one deal a year. Like anything other than the flip you have going on, or anything you have your sights on right now?
No, not really. I mean, with the primary residence I just bought, aside working from the investment properties, I do want to get some work done with this, because I don't want to delay putting. I don't want to put it off, and then next thing you know, it's nearing that time, and then it's like, oh, I haven't chipped away at this over my duration here. So like, I'm always able to fill in the gaps as needed, but more so, honestly, toward the end of the year, as we're kind of out of the busier season, just focus on mental health, physical health, well-being, and explore different marketing options. Getting out there and community events, teaming up with other agents, working together, coming up with different ideas and just trial and error, testing different things, seeing what works for us, and then implementing them for, whether it's the remainder of the year or in 2024, and, just see where it goes. It's hard to know what you don't know when you're, in your first year and a half in real estate, but, you see the opportunities out there and you're like, okay, this is how we're going to have to go about it. So test them out and see what happens. What about you guys?
I don't know. I got a newborn, so my life revolves around him right now. I'm getting everything off my plate. I mean, I'm taking all my friends' advice and who are saying spend as much time with your son because they grow up so fast. I know Mike and Tyler have been telling me this for the last year or so. So to me, that's the most important thing. But my goal is kind of like yours. Like I try to do 1 to 5 deals a year. I've already done 2. I've got 2 on the books that might go through, that might not. If they do, they do. If they don't, I don't give a shit. Because I mean, it's not going to make or break me. I'm in a good position now. So that's for me what's going on. I would like to get more active, get some weight off my body. I'd like Tyler, like we all have these injuries that plague us and restrict us from doing stuff. So I'm just trying to figure out what is going to make me a better person and happier and healthier. So that's my jam.
For sure. Love it.
For me, I'm just learning a bunch of new stuff. I've been diving into Instagram, YouTube, stuff like that, to learn skills. Do you think that's going to be a huge deal? And then like you mentioned, this is traditionally the slower time on the retail aspect of real estate. So I've always used this period to like catch up on reading, getting back in contact with people that I haven't been throughout the rest of the year when I am busy, and then just kind of planning the next year ahead. But for me, I've spent more time this year doing private money lending, stuff like that. I joined, this is a plug for paid masterminds. I mean, I joined the Hard Money Bankers. I forget what it's called. It's a super cheap monthly fee, but it's the amount of information I'm getting is unreal. And I've done everything that they're talking about just on the retail side. So it seems like a natural transition for me. And I kind of want to scale that up next year. Jason does a really good job presenting the numbers enough to where it piqued my interest, and I already have the infrastructure for my retail side. So I think I'll make a heavy push for that in the next year. I like making the money on the private money notes, and I like making other people the money too. So that's been my thing. That, and then like I know Mike's been doing some self-storage. I'm still definitely interested in that, but I'm trying to figure out where I can go with the least amount of resistance using my existing skills to produce the highest results so I can spend more time with my family and stuff like that. And to me, although self-storage is exciting, the hard money stuff seems like I could get a lot more traction a lot quicker. So that's what I'm focusing on now, is just take these last couple months and really pushing and then hit the ground running. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm merely speaking to this from the business component, but to Tyler's point, I'm looking to grow the lending business in the next year or so. That's one of the focuses, and then to cross over a threshold within the self-storage business. Those are pretty much my 2 focuses right now. Obviously, there's a bunch of other stuff mixed in there, but those are the 2 primary things we're looking to do.
You know, one thing we talked about before, I think Mike said it before, was I'd rather do $1 million deal than 10 $100,000 deals. So it's like, what's your bandwidth capacity? Like, you don't want to spend your wheels doing like a bunch of $5,000-$10,000 deals when you can just do one big one. Like, focus all your energy. Also, I'm a big dog person. That's a beautiful dog you got there.
Thanks. She's my bud. I even take her to the firehouse with me.
I've got 2 giant Irish Wolfhounds that are as big as I am.
They're big dogs.
They are big dogs. All right, we're just past an hour on this. Is there anything that we missed that you want to touch on?
No, I thought it was good stuff. I mean, there's definitely a million different topics we could touch on.
Exactly.
More in the mental health, physical health, just the investing side of things. I mentioned Tyler before. He said at one point, leverage everything. And I love that. It's like, we're always thinking of how we can get the most out of, what we have. And I think if you just keep that ball rolling, it can play out for you, but you have to find out, you're the one that has to make that determination that, what's going to be best for you and what's going to, make you happy at the end of the day. I think that's important. But I really appreciate you guys having me on. I'd love to talk with you more in the future.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We might have you back on. We're not gonna let you say no, but you actually show up for the podcast, whereas other guys don't. So thank you for showing up today.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, I wish you guys
Have
the
a good
best
one.
of luck. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, buddy.
We'll see you guys.
See you, Lee.
You too.